mute your mic, put your camera on, anything like that, you will be included in the recording. So again, thank you for joining us this morning. And we have an amazing guest speaker today for our junior breakfast. We have Michelle Kidwell, who is here from Chesapeake College Plan, who is literally one of our favorite people. She is amazing and is a great resource for you and your students. So without further ado, Michelle, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you everybody for being here. As Ms. Ponte said, I'm Michelle Kidwell. I'm the Chesapeake College Plan Advisor at, at Calvert High School. They're on Tuesdays to work with the students, and we can work on anything that they are having questions about in the college admissions process, in the financial aid process. I am happy to kind of tailor my presentations and my time to whatever it is they're needing at the time. So today we're going to be talking about the college admissions process, which I understand you are all parents of juniors. So if your student, your junior, has not yet begun this process, it is something that they should be beginning right now. It is a very long process. It's a kind of a marathon. And next year, during the application cycle of this process, seniors get very, very bogged down. It is a lot to manage between their high school courses, their activities, and putting together their college applications. The only way I can think of to make it any less stressful for them and for you, to be honest, it's stressful for parents as well, is to begin it earlier. So if they haven't started yet, I recommend that they go ahead and get started on this process as soon as they can. And I think that's why you're here, because you kind of want to understand what process they will be entering. Let's see. Okay, there we go. All right, so when we talk about college admissions, we want the students to be finding their best fit colleges. And there are three or four areas that we want to address when we're looking at finding best fit colleges. The first one is academic. So what are the students' chances of being admitted to the college that they're looking at? And will they be happy once they get there? The focus of this for the colleges is pretty much looking at your students' their high school academic record. So comparing their GPA and test scores to the GPA and test scores of the average admitted students at the colleges. There's a college for everybody. Not every college expects your students to have super high GPA and super high test scores. And that's kind of part of this process, is figuring out where your student fits in. If you look on the college websites or on some of these college research sites that I'm going to be giving you, you can usually find a range for GPA and test scores for the average admitted students. If your student is below that range, it does not at all mean that they will not be admitted, but it just means that it might be a little bit more competitive for them to be admitted to that school. So if your student finds a college and they're a little bit below that range, certainly encourage them to apply, because the colleges are going to look at their whole record, not just at their academic record. Also, and when you're considering the academic fit, is to make sure that the college has the major, or if your student is undecided on major, that they have plenty of choices for majors when they get there. The academic culture and style would be kind of like what the classes are like. What are the professors like? Are there research opportunities available if your student is interested in doing research? Are there small classes? A lot of the smaller schools will have, classes with 20, 30, 50, 100 students, but some of those large universities have 200, 300 students in a large lecture hall. So what is it that's going to be most fitting for your student's style academically? The next one is the social fit, and that is purely driven by what the student is looking for. Do they want a large school, a small school? Do they want to be in a certain geographic location? How far away from home would they like to be? Do they want to be near a city? If they're an athlete, do they plan on playing sports? And if they do, what division would they like to play in Division 1, 2, or 3? That's very important for things for them to consider. If your student isn't an athlete, or maybe is a high school athlete but doesn't aspire to be a college athlete, maybe what kinds of events do they want to attend? Is that college going to have those available for them? If it is possible, I recommend that you and your student visit the college campuses when there are students actually on campus. That just gives you a better idea of what type of student is on that campus and what the feeling of that campus is. When you attend those college visits, I recommend that you reach out to the admissions office and sign up to go to an admissions presentation and take a student guided tour. Since COVID, a lot of schools have begun to offer those virtual tours and virtual information sessions, and that's a great option too if you're not able to attend in person. However, when it comes down to making that final choice, I do recommend that students visit the campus before they decide that they're going to attend there, because you just don't have any way of knowing what the campus is actually like, the feel of it, and what the students are like, and what the professors are like until you actually step on the campus. And Ms. Ponte is going to be monitoring, and the other counselors monitoring the chat. If you have questions, feel free to go ahead and put questions in there. And we're probably a small enough group that if you would like to unmute yourself and ask questions, that's fine as well. So if anybody has any questions about this, you can let me know. And otherwise, we'll go on to the next slide. All right, let me go ahead. So we talked about the academic fit, the social fit, and these two kind of go hand in hand for your best fit college, is the financial fit and the return on investment. I recommend that as soon as possible, you have a conversation with your student about the family's financial situation regarding paying for college. Although you don't know until you actually get your financial aid award letters how much each college is going to cost you out of pocket, it's a good idea for your student to kind of know, like, this is what our family is prepared for. I do not recommend right now that you eliminate any colleges that your student's interested based on that cost, because a lot of colleges will give both merit-based financial aid and need-based financial aid. So there's no way of knowing your out-of-pocket costs until you have those financial aid award letters. With that in mind, it's recommended that you have at least one college that your family can piece together the financing for if your student does not receive any merit-based or need-based financial aid. Taking that into consideration, if you do need to borrow, if your student needs to borrow to pay for college, the rule of thumb, got a little bit of an echo. The rule of thumb for college debt is to not borrow any more money over the course of college, usually 4 years, sometimes a little more, but do not borrow any more than the anticipated first year salary of your college graduate. So if your student is looking at a career that maybe the starting salary is $50,000 for their first year, over those 4 years or more of college, don't borrow any more than that amount. And that kind of keeps you in a reasonable debt situation. Any questions about that? All right.
Hey, Michelle, someone was asking, how do you get a financial aid award letter?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, and the way you get that financial aid award letter is every year in the fall for the following year of college. So next year, when your student is a senior in the fall, the FAFSA opens on October 1st. So October 1st of 2022, you're going to fill out the FAFSA for the following academic year. And some colleges will send you right away when you get an admission letter what your financial aid award is, and some kind of send it later, closer to the deadline when you have to decide which college you're attending, which is May 1st. So usually by April, you would have that financial aid award letter. But some colleges, like I said, have begun giving them out as early as when they send their acceptance letters to your student. Does that make sense? You're good?
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm not understanding that recommendation that you not borrow any more than your student's first year salary, because say your expected family contribution is, say it comes in at $25,000. You're going to be expected to pay that in the first year and for 4 years or maybe 5 years. So you're going to end up with $100,000. Well, never mind. I was doing the math backwards. Well, no, I'm not doing the math backwards. Sorry. You're going to be expected to pay $25,000 each year, and that's going to end up being $100,000. You can't expect a student to have a salary of $100,000 the first year, I'm guessing. So how do you manage that when your expected family contribution is going to be, fairly large?
Michelle, can I interject for just a second? This is Miss Harris. I know when I told my sons, when you apply and you get your award letters, that amount has to be under $10,000 because I need you to be no more than $40,000 in debt. And my kids didn't really want to hear that, but I mean, that's kind of how it is. Because, yeah, you could easily drop $50,000 a year in a college, no problem.
But most colleges, as I understand it, are going to take your expected family contribution into consideration when they give you need-based scholarships. So they're going to take their $80,000 cost and subtract out and say, okay, you will owe us $25,000. How am I to control that down?
I mean, I just went to the school that gave them the most academic money. I mean, sometimes theirs just happens to be a private school that they're trying to attract people out of state, whatever. And I mean, their school cost $43 and they gave them like $27 before any aid or FAFSA or anything off the top. So that could happen.
Okay, I don't see it as happening very often, just because that expected family contribution is so large into their consideration of what they're going to offer you.
Well, trust me, my kids were not straight A students.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really a matter. The most generous scholarships are academic scholarships. I know a lot of people put a lot of focus on athletic scholarships, but really, if a college really wants your student there, they want them there for the academics, and they're gonna pony up a little bit more money for academic scholarships than they are for the athletic scholarships typically. It is just a matter of, and that's why you want to apply to a lot of different schools, and you want to see what your options are. And it's, everybody's family situation is different, and every family needs to kind of decide what they're willing to spend on this. But yeah, if you look at it, potentially as this is the most, like Miss Sarah said, this is the most I have to offer you for a year, then you kind of have to back into the college that's actually the best fit, again, academically, socially, and financially. But that's just a rule of thumb. That's, we all know that there's a student debt crisis, but that's a rule of thumb to kind of keep you out of that. Starting at a community college is a good option to lower expenses. Going to a college that you can commute to locally. When I went to college, I went to Salisbury. My family lived in Salisbury. I lived at home for the first couple of years, and that reduced my expenses significantly. But it's just something to consider as you're looking out, how you fit into these college scenarios.
Hey, Michelle, can I just say one thing too? I know, I had experience with, one of my stepchildren where, you know, I think the cost was just prohibitive, and she, you know, her expected family contribution was very low. She went to Catholic University, and I don't know what that is, 60 or 70,000, and she got a ton of aid, and they pretty much paid for everything out of that 60 or 70, but she was still 20,000 short. So that meant she still was going to have to take 20,000 out in loans every year. You know, even though they were paying for most of it. And I know after one semester, she ended up not going back just because she didn't want to be saddled with at least $80,000 in debt.
Any more comments on
Hello,
this?
I'd like to add a comment. If you all can hear me, this is Kathleen, a parent, and apparently there's been research from Georgetown University that shows from 1980 to 2019, college costs have increased by 169%. So,
Yes.
you know, it's sort of a wake-up call. It's not as an understatement, because I think when I'm planning for my children's college, I'm thinking back to what college cost when I was in college 20 years ago, and it's been, you know, exponentially more expensive. So it is a big concern. I don't know if there's anything else we can do about it, or any advice you have about how to limit the debt our children might get saddled with, you know, given these circumstances. I appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah, I really think it's just a matter of doing your research and doing your homework and kind of finding a really good fit for your child. Like I said, I feel like the academic scholarships, the ones from the colleges themselves, are the most generous. So kind of look at your child's academic fit and find a college that fits them academically as well as socially. And hopefully, you know, they'll be able to get some merit-based aid that will help bring the cost down. If your family is very needy, the need-based aid should cover expenses. Not all of the expenses, I will say, but need-based grants are in place to help families who are have more need. So yeah, it really is a matter of doing the research and kind of trying to find that best fit. Okay, I'm going to continue on. If you have, you know, if you have more questions or comments about this later, we can circle back around on it. So we're talking about, you know, researching colleges to find the best fit. So these are just some websites that are available to you to do that college research. A couple that I really like are Big Future, and that's the College Board's website for college planning, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. I also like one of the newer ones is My Options, and these websites have a place for students to kind of research the colleges. They also have articles with advice for going through the process and things to think about as you're going through the process. They also could give you, you know, demographic numbers and costs and things like that. These are a really good place to start. However, I always recommend that you check the college's website itself, because I have found mistakes, particularly with application deadlines and financial aid deadlines. You want to make sure you go to that college's website and verify those, because I have seen the wrong dates on some of these websites. And then here are a few more resources. So once your student is doing all of that college research, and by the end of summer, they should have a pretty good idea where they want to apply. And then this website, makemeafreshman.com, I really like this resource because your student can go ahead and type in all the colleges that they're applying to, and then it gives you a personalized checklist of you know, like by due date of what the tasks are to apply to each of those colleges. It's really hard when they're applying to, you know, even 3 schools or 4 schools, but some students apply to many more than that. So this is a really good website to kind of keep you organized as you're going through the process. I talked earlier about Big Future and My Options. You can find the colleges on those. You can explore careers. You can learn about how to pay for college. And then the last one there, the Zello, I think that's how you say it. It used to be Career Cruising. That's one through Calvert County Public Schools. And I think the counselors and teachers have actually introduce this to your students, but they do have some really good interest surveys and things like that. If your student is not sure what they might want to do career-wise, I recommend that they kind of go to that and take some of those surveys or interest assessments, they might be called. So once they have their list of colleges that they're applying to, these are the kind of the components of the college application for most colleges. Each college will have an application form. Usually that's like an online portal that they go into and they fill out. Some colleges are on the Common App. Many colleges, hundreds of colleges are on the Common App. And that would be just completing that application form one time and then adding in the specific requirements for each of the colleges on the Common Application. In addition to the application form, they will submit their high school transcript. If they have standardized test scores and the college requires them, they will be added. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next screen. The next 3, the letters of recommendation, essays, and the student resume or activities record. Not all colleges require those. Many of your more selective colleges will. And then most colleges have an application fee. And then you can see that there are fee waivers available for standardized test scores and the application fee if your family is eligible based on your income. You can request a fee waiver. So a little bit more about the standardized test scores. During COVID, especially at the beginning, it was really difficult for students to take the standardized tests. So a lot of colleges became test optional and are remaining test optional for the upcoming admission cycle. It's really important to understand a couple things about this. Is first of all, you should check with the individual colleges about their testing policies. If they say that they are test optional and your student has test scores that are indicative of their abilities, then it's recommended that you do go ahead and submit those test scores because it's just kind of another piece of the puzzle to kind of bolster their application. However, if your student was testing and there was somebody behind them sniffling and coughing and they were distracted and their test scores were not indicative of their abilities, then they can withhold those test scores. They don't have to send them. If a college has indicated that it is test optional, they will not penalize students who don't submit those test scores. So it's important to understand that test optional means they won't be penalized if they don't submit them, but if they have them and they submit them because they're a good representation of their abilities, it can bolster their application. Any questions about that one? Okay. Okay, so this is just a top 12 of what colleges look for in high school students. This is from a survey of the Independent Educational Consultants Association, which is a professional organization that I belong to. And this is from 2020, and this is what educational consultants have indicated that most of the colleges are asking for from the students. So we talked about this a little earlier. The number one thing is that they're going to be looking at their high school record, their high school curriculum. They are looking for GPAs, higher GPA in their major subjects, and they actually do consider if your child is taking an AP course and they get, a B instead of an A, they look upon that favorably as well because they know it's a more challenging course. We talked about the SAT scores or ACT scores. Colleges are looking for meaningful activities. So not just, that your child is involved, your student is involved in everything, but that your student is involved in the things that are really important to them. They are looking for well-written essays that kind of reveal your student's unique personality. And I have lots of good resources for writing essays. I know sometimes in the spring of junior year, the English classes, they're required to write a college essay. Before your student starts on that college essay, I have a whole bunch of really good brainstorming resources that they might want to come and get from me, because the college essay is definitely different from like a high school essay. They really should be working to reveal their personality and to kind of show their personal growth rather than just kind of answering a question, which is what they're used to doing. The colleges are also looking for leadership in the activities they are involved in. They are also looking to put together a diverse student body. So depending on what personal characteristics your student can bring to that campus and what that campus is looking for, that could influence their admission. Strong counselor and teacher letters of recommendation. Any special talents that contribute to the campus life. And again, it doesn't have to be just athletically, be culturally, artistically, community service. They're looking for a demonstration of intellectual curiosity, and that's kind of just like based on, like I talked about earlier, they're looking at their whole application, not just their academics. They just kind of want to see what kind of student they are and how they would fit into their campus, their student body. Students' character and values are also considered, and then demonstrated interest. Not all colleges actually consider this, but your students may be getting emails from colleges, and the colleges are keeping track, kind of like, did the student open that email? Did they read it? How much time did they spend reading it? Did they click on the links? You know, those kind of things. Did they call the admissions office and ask questions, or did they come and visit campus and things like that? That would be demonstrated interest. Any questions about any of those? Okay. And this is just kind of a planning timeline for your students as juniors. So in the fall, we're kind of past that. They should be looking at the colleges, their careers, their interests, thinking about standardized testing, thinking about estimating financial need. There is a cost calculator. I have there. We can take a look at that in a minute. In the winter, they might now, if they haven't yet taken an SAT or an ACT, I would recommend that they register for a standardized test. Also, it's a good time to begin searching for scholarships. Most scholarships that are available locally are for high school seniors, but there are other scholarships that are available for underclassmen and juniors. They want to continue challenging themselves in their courses and getting good grades. So, you know, looking to next year, I know that it's now time to be choosing classes. Colleges are going to be looking to see that they're still trying to challenge themselves, because college is definitely going to be harder. So the better they can prepare themselves by taking more challenging classes, colleges look favorably upon that. The next slide, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Big Future scholarships. If you have a student interested in applying for an ROTC scholarship or applying to a military academy, those applications are kind of coming up really soon, like even if some of them may already be open already. So they should be considering beginning those if they're interested in that right now. Their college list that they're going to be doing that research on right now, it's not a bad idea to have 15 to 20 colleges on that list. It seems like a lot, but you know, if we're talking about doing the research for the best fit, you know, the more they can put on there now, it's easier to eliminate them than to have to research, you know, 15 colleges in the fall when they should be doing their applications. We talked a little bit about FAFSA, which opens on October 1st of every year. you're going to be gathering documents for that now. And the reason that's here is kind of right now it's tax season and you're getting all your documents together to do your taxes. Keep in mind that those are the documents that you will need when you complete your FAFSA. So for next year's FAFSA, you're going to be using 2021's tax information. So once you have your taxes done, kind of put all your stuff in a file together and have it available when you are going to be doing your FAFSA in October. And then in the summer, if you have a student athlete, they would need to register with the NCAA if they want to play a sport in college. That's for Division I and II. Division III does not require that registration. In the summer, you can also get the FSA ID, which is going to be your log-on that you use to complete the FAFSA in October or in the fall. Summer activities to consider, anything that would kind of give your students some good experiences as they go through summer, a job, an internship, things that they can learn and grow from. And then again, you can visit colleges. A lot of families do that in the summer because it's convenient. It's a little less, there's many, many less students on campus, so it's not as great an option maybe if you have narrowed it down to a college, but it's certainly a good idea that you could do now. So also creating a student resume, looking at applications, and researching local scholarships. This is the big future scholarship.
I was going to say, Michelle, I think we have a participant raising their hand to ask a question.
Okay, sure.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, in regards to student resumes, I haven't heard about those before. Could you talk a little bit about what that looks like and if you have any literature or things to help us develop a better student resume?
Yeah, sure. So, and not all colleges require this, but it is a good thing to have. And it's also a good thing to give to anybody you ask to write a letter of recommendation so they can have a little bit of a history of your activities in high school. So it's just, I do have some resources for that, and I'm happy to give them to your student. But usually it would be, you'll include things on there like any awards that you've received, any leadership or community service, volunteer opportunities, work opportunities that you, or experiences that you've had. It's not so much an academic resume because your transcript kind of is that, but it does give you an opportunity to highlight any awards that you've received academically. So I would say it would be extracurricular activities, community service, leadership, work, and any academic honors.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Okay, sure. Any other comments on that? That is a tricky one because if your student hasn't kind of been keeping track of that stuff, you kind of have to go back and recreate that. So if you have younger students, my recommendation for the student resume is to, each time they get a report card, to go ahead and kind of update on the resume, or even, it could just be a list of activities, update what they've done that particular marking period to kind of keep it current. Okay, so the big future scholarships. So basically you would go to, I'm going to go ahead. I think I pulled it up for you. Not very good at this. Yes, okay. So hopefully you can see this. This is the Big Future website, and you can see the class of 2023 can begin this process now to earn entries into a $540,000 monthly drawings, just for kind of doing the steps that are required to complete the college process. So right now, your student would just have, using their College Board account, they would go in and they can build a college list. So right now, the ones that are open are this beginning December 6th. They can be building their college list and practicing for the SAT. If they are doing those two things, then they will be entered into the monthly drawing for that $500 and $40,000 scholarship. And then beginning in July, they can start exploring scholarships and strengthening that college list, which is just continuing that research for their college list. And they can be entered into those drawings. And then beginning in the fall, October 1st, when they complete the FAFSA and put in their college applications, they are also able to enter into those monthly drawings. So that's the reason that I'm kind of big on the college, the big future college research website, because these are steps that your students need to take in order to complete the process. So at least give themselves the opportunity to enter into these scholarships. All right. And then this is just kind of a another resource from the Independent Educational Consultants Association. These are what seniors should be doing, rising seniors should be doing this year in the summer. Writing a generic admission essay, complete at least one college application, which they may or may not be able to do depending on when the college application opens and is due. They can also, I recommend before they leave high school in the spring, to ask for one or two teachers if they could write them letters of recommendation, visiting colleges, developing that college list, participating in activities, and then searching for scholarships. And then here is my contact information. I am at Calvert High School every Tuesday. I also have virtual appointments. You can see at the bottom there, you can click on my Calendly link if your student wants a virtual appointment. I do have a reminder. I don't send out a lot of information on that, but when I find that there's something interesting that students should be aware of, or if they want a reminder to attend my lunch sessions on Tuesday, they can sign up for my remind. And they can also always email me or talk to their counselor, and their counselor can get a message to me if they have they need help with something. So that's all I had for my presentation, but I'm happy to answer more questions if people have questions that they'd like, or you can email me with questions. If you would like any resources, I encourage you to have your student come and see me so they can kind of understand the process, and I can give them the information that they're needing to answer their questions.
Can you go back to that last slide that had our
one?
The one that said what we're supposed to be doing this summer? Yeah, that one. Thank
you. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
And I also had a question about financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
We have twins, and I was wondering if when you do your FAFSA, do they take that into account that you'll have two students going at the same time?
So there are some changes coming next year for FAFSA, and it used to be that was a consideration if you had more than not just twins, but if you had like maybe an older sibling that was in college at the same time, that used to be taken into consideration in your expected family contribution. But it looks like now that is not going to be really taken into consideration, which is kind of, as a parent, you're kind of like, what? You got to be kidding me. But I guess their philosophy is that, you've had these students and you knew you should be preparing. So they are expecting people to pay for the bulk of the education. It's really those who are very needy who kind of get the need-based grants. So again, kind of like Miss Harris, she had her twins as well, and she kind of said, this is kind of what we need to shoot for. This is the amount that we're shooting for. And we're looking for schools that are going to give you either merit-based aid to get you there. Or, you know, maybe we can borrow a little bit of money, but we're not going to go overboard on this. So unfortunately, yeah, I don't think that having twins is going to make much of a difference.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And speaking about FAFSA, I am available like in the fall when you're ready to do FAFSA. We do information nights about it. I try and get lots of information to the kids. If they come to my lunch sessions, I try to teach them about it. And I also offer FAFSA appointments where I could assist you if you wanted. I could sit down and kind of walk you through the process as you're sitting at the computer filling out the FAFSA.
Before we close up today, does anyone have any other questions that they'd like to share? You can either, again, you can share in the chat, or if you're brave, you can unmute your mic and say it that way. Michelle, we have a question in the chat. How often and how frequently do they reward on options? Do they receive it monthly? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I need a little clarification on that too. So if whoever wrote that, like maybe.
I think he's unmuting himself.
Sorry. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just trying to use it as a caveat to get my son to use the options board, pointing out that if he's doing all these different things, there's a potential chance of receiving $500 or something like $40,000 in scholarship. I was wondering if that was something that he would see within a month or two, or is that just, you know, it's a caveat, but they do that at a much later time? And whether is this given out to just a few students, or is it, you know, across the country are like 50 students receiving this? And
Okay.
trying to encourage him to realize that by doing the following things, this is a potential reward, and is it realistic that they might receive it, or there? So that's where I was coming from.
Okay, that's a great question. So I think that you're referring kind of to this big future scholarships. They call them the College Board Opportunity Scholarships. I think they've rebranded it now just as Big Future Scholarships. Mm-hmm. So they give away 2 $40,000 scholarships in each monthly drawing. Excuse me. And then they're saying they give away hundreds of $500 scholarships. So, you know, this is kind of a good question to kind of lead off into something else. So when your student is looking for scholarships, my recommendation is to start small and then go bigger. So this Big Future, clearly it's on the College Board website. Lots of people are talking about it all over the country. So you're going to have, like you said, you're going to have a significant amount of students applying for these scholarships. So the likelihood that your student gets one of them is going to be smaller. Mm-hmm. So there's, I mean, the thing about this one is your student needs to be doing these things anyway. So go ahead and do them and get entered into the scholarship. Somebody's going to win it, you know, so it could be you. Okay. My recommendation otherwise for scholarships is to start small and then get bigger. Starting small. The colleges themselves, we talked about this a little earlier, the colleges themselves are going to be the most generous in awarding scholarship money. They just have more money to award. So they're going to be the most generous. So certainly look at your colleges you're applying to. If you're not sure, ask the question. Some colleges just use your general admission application to award scholarships, and some of them require a separate application. So you want to ask the colleges, like, do I need to be filling out anything else in order to be considered for scholarships? Next is going to be our local scholarships. Right now, the Calvert local scholarship application is open. It's only open to students in Calvert County. So that's just less competition. So you're more likely to earn one of those than you would be maybe at this Big Future website. There are other local scholarships that are not on the Calvert local scholarship application. Ms. Ponte has the local scholarships, and I would advise your students to reach out to Ms. Ponte. Ms. Ponte, are there any for juniors, or most of them all still just for seniors?
Most of them all are just for seniors. And actually at our next junior breakfast in March, Christian Zimmerman will be coming as well to talk about scholarships, financial aid, FAFSA. He's a real guru. He's the director of financial aid at CSM. And at our session the next time, I can share a little bit of information about the scholarships that we do at Calvert High and how students can get the notifications and things like that.
Okay. So I hope I answered your question about the Big Future scholarships.
And before we close out today, does anyone have any other questions for Michelle? The Calvert LSA application, it's actually online. It's clsap.org. And right now the portal's open until March, but it's only for seniors. So that will be available next year around the same time. It usually opens right after the holidays in January, and is open for about 2 months for students. So that will probably be about the same timeline next year as well, because it's been that way for many years. Do we have any other questions this morning before we wrap up? All right, well, I definitely want to thank Michelle for giving up her time to come this morning and present. And she is an absolutely wonderful resource for our students and their families. So like she said, she's available at any point in time for individual appointments. Students can email her or come and talk to their counselor and we can connect them with Michelle. She's also at Calvert High every Tuesday during A and B lunch. She's available to meet with students then. Michelle, do you have anything else to add this morning?
I don't think so. I mean, I just hope to send your students my way. Like I said, the earlier they start on this, the little less stressful it'll be in the fall. But I'm happy to answer their questions and kind of guide them through the process. Thank
you so much, Michelle. And don't forget to, our next junior breakfast will be on Thursday, March 10th. Thursday, March 10th at 7:20. And again, we'll be offering it on Teams. And I'm just going to go ahead and put the link to RSVP in the chat. And like I said, to Kristen Zimmerman from the Financial Aid Office at CSM will be joining us at that session to answer all of your questions about financial aid, FAFSA, scholarships, really anything to do with paying for college. So thank you everyone for coming this morning, and we hope to see you again in March. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.